Good morning. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. In today's update, 712,000 Americans filed unemployment claims last week. It's the first time in 2 weeks that the numbers have come down, but they're still higher than any pre-pandemic record. Meanwhile, there are signs of progress on a new COVID relief package. The $908 billion plan is backed by Democratic leaders and moderate Republicans. If they reach a deal, the bill would have to pass by next Friday when Congress recesses until the new year. A new wildfire is burning in Southern California. The bonfire, sparked by a house fire, has scorched nearly 4,000 acres. Mandatory evacuations are in place for residents of Silverado Canyon and neighboring areas. The bonfire is the biggest of 4 wildfires burning in Southern California alone. Strong winds are posing extreme fire danger throughout that whole region. And the U.S. hit a painful new milestone yesterday. COVID-19 killed more than 2,800 people in the U.S. in the last 24 hours. That's the highest number of daily deaths since the start of the pandemic. And the director of the CDC now warns we are on the brink of the most difficult time in the country's public health history. He says to brace for up to 200,000 more deaths between now and February. But there is hope on the horizon. Government officials expect emergency vaccine approval to come within the next 2 weeks. Operation Warp Speed aims to distribute nearly 20 million doses to states based on population by the end of the month. Those initial doses will be good to go for healthcare workers and elderly home care residents. And for more on the pandemic, I'm joined now by infectious disease specialist and ABC News contributor, Dr. Todd Ellerin. Dr. Ellerin, let's start with this record number of COVID deaths. More than 2,800 in the U.S. in just one day. The CDC director says brace for another 200,000 by February. How do we turn this around?
Good morning, Diane. This is so sobering. It literally pains my heart to think. And with these numbers, over 3,000 deaths in one day, that doesn't even have contribution from the Thanksgiving holiday. We're not going to see that effect for 3 weeks after Thanksgiving. So what we're seeing right now is from cases that were from 4 weeks ago, symptoms developing 3 weeks ago, hospitalizations developing 2 weeks ago, and deaths coming now and then reporting. So really, it's looking grim right now. And I really do think that for places in the country where their hospitals are nearing capacity, they really have to think about shutting down and shutting down quickly. And I mean shutdowns like we saw in the spring.
It sounds like we're within 2 weeks of having a vaccine approved in this country. Could that help?
Of course it's going to help, but it's not going to help right now. Remember, likely we will have tens of millions of people in the U.S. receive their first dose before the end of the year, but they still won't get their second dose until sometime in January. And then immunity typically takes 1 to 2 weeks after that second dose. So it's still a ways away. Immunity, we're going to see that in 2021. Right now, we really have to hunker down.
And all the more important, it seems, when you're so close to a vaccine, it feels like we just have a little bit longer in this fight. But on the vaccine front, why is it taking longer to get the vaccine approved here in the U.S. than it is in the U.K.?
Well, again, I want to say I think our FDA, the CDC, are doing an amazing job. There are some differences. The EMA, the European Medicines Agency, the FDA equivalent, they have access to the data of the companies a little bit earlier, and they don't require, they trust the data of their companies more so than we do, meaning the FDA is really working around the clock to scrutinize every piece of information from these clinical trials to make sure what the companies are describing are accurate. The other thing is that the European agency may have a little more flexibility in the specific time meetings, and also they don't have public consultation like we do here. But in any event, the EMA, the FDA, the CDC, these are all very well-respected agencies. I think it's great that the UK has approved, and we're likely going to approving in very short order.
That's right. Officials are saying in the next 2 weeks, hopefully. But I got some questions from viewers on Twitter that I also wanted to hit you with. One is, what happens if you already had COVID and you get the vaccine?
Okay, so we don't know that answer right now. It's an important question, but most likely nothing from a safety perspective, okay? Now, we're still going to learn that from some of the clinical trials because remember, some of the people who entered the clinical trials did have COVID-19 but didn't know it. So they were antibody positive. We're expecting somewhere in the realm of about 10%. So we'll learn about what happens to those patients, but most likely nothing from a safety perspective, whether the vaccine gives more immunity above and beyond the natural immunity that these patients already have. We're going to have to learn with time.
And another viewer, Chris, says that he was actually part of one of the vaccine trials, but he doesn't know if he got the placebo or the actual vaccine. So what happens to these people?
Right. Wow. I mean, this is really critical for many reasons, from an effectiveness perspective, ethics perspective. So both companies, both Pfizer and Moderna, want to be able to give their placebo patients the vaccine, but really they have to wait for the FDA and figure out, as part of the emergency use authorization, hopefully that will be, the companies will be given direction on what to do. See, it's possible that the FDA, in order to file that BLA, that biologics license application, to get that full FDA approval that we know takes at least 6 months, they may want to see differences still over time between the vaccine group and the placebo group. So this is going to be a tough decision for the FDA, but I'm sure the companies want to give the placebo group vaccine as quickly as possible. They should be the first ones to get the vaccine in our country.
Got it. And I also got a lot of questions about side effects, and not just today, but throughout the past few weeks. What do we know about that?
Okay, so there's no question there are going to be side effects. When you list all vaccines have side effects. Most have injection site reactions. The COVID-19 vaccines, at least the messenger RNA ones, they tend to be reactogenic. What does that mean? People can get fevers, muscle aches, joint pain. They can, get chills. Sometimes they can get high fevers. But remember, these typically don't last more than 12 to 24 hours. And we want these side effects because this means that the immune system is getting boosted, and this is what provides the ultimate amazing effectiveness. And I do want to say one thing, Diane. Just remember something. Right now, in the days ahead, we are seeing unprecedented, historic numbers of cases and hospitalizations and deaths. This is very reminiscent of 1918 and 1919. Remember, that plague of the century back in 1918, the most deadly waves were that fall wave and the winter wave. And the people that were physically distanced were masking the most. The communities that did shut down, at least partially, those were the ones that did the best. And I just don't want to see more Americans, more of us succumb to this virus, especially knowing that the COVID-19 vaccines are on the horizon.
And Dr. Eller, I just want to clarify one more thing, because there's so much misinformation out there, and a lot of people, when they hear that you can have side effects like a fever, for example, they think that means the vaccine gave you the virus. Can you clarify that?
Absolutely. These vaccines cannot give you COVID-19. These messenger RNA viruses, I want you to think of it almost like bread that you're putting in a toaster, and what comes out is toast. Or you could think of it as flour. That's the ingredient right before you get to bread. So that's really what's happening. Usually we're used to hearing about giving protein vaccines like the spike protein. The reason the companies aren't doing this is because it's harder to scale up those protein vaccines on the scale that's necessary. Ultimately, what will be billions of doses of vaccine needed around the world. So by giving messenger RNA, they can churn this out so they can actually scale up to a level that will meet the demand that the world needs right now.
So those side effects that people are experiencing, that comes from your immune system. It doesn't come from the virus.
That's right. It's not the virus. It's just the immune system reacting to the vaccine. Basically, it's the messenger RNA, and then it's surrounded by a little fatty, like vacuole, a little fatty, it's called a liposome. And basically, that's reactogenic. The immune system reacts to that. And as the immune system is building up, it's actually directing the antibodies against that protein that's been produced, and that's what gets this amazing effectiveness and doesn't allow the virus to enter the cell, so we become protected. If you think of a house on fire, that fire is the virus, and basically we can use our therapeutics to try to put out the fire, but it's better to be able to have us armored in a fireproof outfit where we can walk into the house that's on fire and not get the virus. That's what the vaccine allows for.
All right, Dr. Todd Ellerin, always great to have you. Thank you.
Take care, Diane.
And be sure to send me your COVID questions on Twitter at Diane R. Macedo. We will answer as many of them as we can right here on the show. And now to the runoff races in Georgia. 2 Senate seats will be voted on next month and will ultimately decide the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. Jon Ossoff is one of the Democratic candidates, and here's part of his conversation with GMA3's Amy Robach.
Do you believe the voters are actually choosing between you and your opponent in these 2 runoff elections, or do you believe that people are coming to the polls to decide the control of the Senate at this point, or do you think it's a mixture of both? What is motivating people, do you think, to make their decision?
Look, I think that people understand that these Senate elections will determine Senate control. And we all remember what Mitch McConnell tried to do to President Obama. He will try to do the exact same thing to Joe and Kamala. Paralysis in Washington at a moment of crisis like this is untenable. We need to get things done. We've had just 4 years of miserable division, no constructive progress, so much hateful politics. And now this crisis that's taken nearly 250,000, more now than 250,000 lives, jobs and businesses and homes on the line. We can't have just gridlock and government shutdowns and obstructionism. We need to get things done for the people. And we can only do that by winning these 2 Senate races.
You can watch more of Jon Ossoff's interview with Amy and TJ later today on GMA3 at 4 p.m. Eastern right here on ABC News Live. And if you have some extra time on your hands or a special skill maybe you've learned during the pandemic, you can look to a side hustle to bring home some extra cash. ABC News Chief Business Correspondent Rebecca Jarvis has more on who's hiring and where to look.
'Tis the season for the side hustle. With more than half of Americans looking for additional income this holiday season, there's still plenty of opportunity to make some quick cash.
I worked TaskRabbit because it allowed me the flexibility. So I could create my own schedule. I could make my own money, meaning I decided how much I was worth, right?
Jamequan Rudd is a clinical social worker who uses TaskRabbit to supplement her income.
Seasonal work is huge, especially from Thanksgiving until the new year. TaskRabbit isn't just about the individual. Small businesses, medium businesses, and large businesses use taskers.
There are also apps like Shipt, Thumbtack, and Instacart that make it easy to bring an extra income on your own schedule. Don't want to leave home? Sites like usertesting.com pay from $10 to $120 to test a company's website or app before it goes live.
You can still make a substantial amount of money between now and the holidays and beyond.
And what about seasonal hiring? According to LinkedIn, there are still 24,000 openings right now with companies like Target, Walmart, and Amazon. Plus, Macy's telling GMA exclusively they will host their final national holiday hiring event today, filling seasonal roles across more than 250 stores across the country.
When we think about e-commerce and the uptick this year, if that continues beyond the pandemic, we anticipate at Monsters seeing an increase for these roles to not only maintain but continue.
And while your primary objective might be to earn money with these side hustles, they also have the side benefit of helping you build new relationships, meet new people, and find new joys, things in your life that you could be dedicated to. They've helped people build new businesses and even find new career paths. Diane?
All right, very important point for that message. Rebecca Jarvis, thank you. And the 737 MAX jet made its first passenger flight since 2 deadly crashes. Airlines are hoping to rebuild confidence in the plane, slated to start making its way back to regular service at the end of this month. Our Gio Benitez was on that flight.
This morning, the plane grounded after 2 crashes that killed 346 people is back in the air, and we are on board. So we are now boarding the Boeing 737 MAX. This is the first time that anyone from the public has flown on this plane since it was grounded nearly 2 years ago. American Airlines flying reporters Wednesday, hoping to convince the public that the MAX is safe. American COO telling us it is.
I am completely comfortable. I put my family on it. I put all my friends on it. And I have no misgivings about doing it. This is a safe airplane. Here in the MAX cockpit, you won't see any changes, but Boeing says it has completely updated its flight control system, and that is all in the software.
That software was triggered in both crashes involving Lion Air 610 and Ethiopian 302, when a faulty sensor gave the wrong information, sending the nose of the planes down, not once, but multiple times. The system now uses 2 sensors and can only send the nose down once. American Airlines pilot Peter Gamble helped Boeing and the FAA create new training protocols.
Now that the dual sensors are there, all of what happened in the past is prevented because you have 2 sensors looking at one another, comparing them, and if it doesn't like it, it'll shut down the systems that it operates that could affect the flight of the aircraft.
But some of the families of the victims aren't convinced, calling this flight a marketing stunt.
Neither of us would ever get on the 737 MAX, and we will warn every single person we know to look at the equipment that they're flying on and make sure that they don't fly on a 737 MAX.
Meanwhile, the first MAX flight with paying customers is set for December 29th from Miami to New York.
And if you are booked on a MAX flight, American Airlines says the moment you book your ticket, you will get an alert. If you don't want to fly, you can change or cancel the flight. Our thanks to Gio Benitez for that report. And now for your latest science and technology headlines, here's Kenneth Moten.
In today's Tech Bites, Apple facing a new lawsuit. A European consumer group is bringing class action lawsuits accusing the company of slowing down older iPhones through software updates. Apple paid $113 million in a similar lawsuit in the U.S. The company said in a statement it would never intentionally shorten the life of any Apple product. And it soon might take a little longer to watch a TikTok video. Some users are now being allowed to upload videos up to 3 minutes long. It seems to be a test run for a possible video time limit extension. The current time limit is 1 minute. This could turn out to be the most expensive Pokemon card ever sold, expected to fetch $500,000 at auction, doubling the current record. It's a rare card from 1999. Those are your Tech Bites. Party like it's a Pokemon party in 1999. Diane, back to you.
Ain't no party like a Pokemon party. Kenneth Moten, thank you. And that does it for this ABC News Live update. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for joining us. And remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. I'll see you back here at 3 p.m. Eastern with Terry Moran for The Breakdown.
We set the stage for progress across a broad range of issues. And while it is not for the United States and the Soviet Union to design the future for Europeans or for any other people, I am convinced that a cooperative U.S.-Soviet relationship can indeed make the future safer and brighter.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.